Hey, what's going on, family? I thought this would be pretty interesting. This channel might just turn into a whole channel about this topic, and maybe I'll start a third channel that's a little more general. But this has been so therapeutic, cathartic, and for myself, and maybe helpful to others, it seems. And I just thought I want to do some interesting ways of processing, where I was as a Christian. For those of you who are not familiar, I was a popular Christian poet, speaker, singer, songwriter, that type thing, and stepped away from that back in 2021, in August of 2021. And I just wanted to take some time to go through one of the pieces that was sort of monumental and pivotal for me as a Christian artist and as just a forward-facing, public-facing Christian influencer. Back in 2014, I performed a poem at an event that I put on called The Canvas, and the poem title was Shadow of a Doubt, A Shadow of a Doubt. And it was the second time that I went kind of viral in my time as a content creator. I think the first time I went kind of viral was through another poem that I did. I won't say the name of it right now. Some of you know the name. But this poem hit a big spike on Facebook and a bit on YouTube. And then just was being spread often, for a long time. People still ask about it to this day, looking for it. I made the video private, so it's been gone for some years now. And I figured it'd be cool to now on this side of things, watch that video. And this is gonna be a little cringe for me, but also therapeutic and compassionate. I have not watched this video in a long time. And I think that I know I'll cringe at the performance because I've grown so much as a communicator and as a performer. And I know there's probably some things in there that make me kind of irk me a little bit just watching it. But also I know that, I think it really came from a genuine place. To give context of it, I really was kind of going through it at this time. And for about a year or so, I had been making these YouTube videos that were getting kind of popular, and people started to see me in this very pristine light. I got so many comments about how great of a Christian I was, and how smart and knowledgeable you are, and you must be just like this prototype for this young Christian guy who's just living I want to be like you. And I didn't want that pressure, so this was kind of the first time. People always talk about how vulnerable and transparent I am, and that kind of became a brand unintentionally. But this was the beginning of that. This was me saying, oh, no. I don't want to be any Jesus for y'all because y'all gonna crucify me at some point. So I don't want to be some digital Jesus, as John Bellion would phrase it. So this was the start of that, me saying, I don't want to be put on a pedestal. But it was scary because I was like, man, here I am as this guy who is on this pedestal, and I wonder what people would think of me if I tell them that I'm currently going through something. Because the trend at the time, for Christian poetry was to go through a testimony, a situation in life, a trial or tribulation in life, go through it, process it, right? Come out better for it, and then write about it in hindsight. But this was a poem about what was currently happening. And I hadn't really seen a lot of poems like that around that time, where it was just like, this is what I'm going through now. And I don't have a practical solution to fix that. I was just trying to present comfort in the dis-ease that you may feel in the moment. And that's what this was. So, Shadow of a Doubt. Yay. Here we go. My hairline was I didn't know how to edge myself up at the time. It was a little jagged. I look kind of young.
I remember my little niece ran up to me and told me, "We learned about Jesus today." And I could tell by her smile she was so excited to learn about this man that she did not quite know yet, but she knew without a doubt for it to be true, because after all, Mommy said so.
Man, that moment, I remember that moment of looking at my niece, my oldest niece, coming into the house. I think it was around Christmas time. I'm not sure. I was visiting home, and I was just like, "Yo, how'd your day go? What you been doing?" And she's like, "We learned about Jesus today." And she was just like, yeah, as the poem said, just like really excited about that. And I felt this like, dang, it must be nice to be so excited. Without all the like drama of Christianity yet. Like it was just very early stages. I think she was probably like, I don't know, it may have been 6 or 7 at the time. Maybe even a little younger. And it was just like, yeah, that easy moment of just believing, right? It's just like, hey, mom said it was true, so it must be true. Cool.
That was the first time in my life that I looked into the eyes of a child and envied them because she had no idea of what it feels like to doubt. What it feels like to have your entire belief system overload with skepticism. To never know the day that you would finally be able to live beyond the shadow of a doubt. I've lived in its darkness for so long. It seems like I have all the right questions.
I will say, performance-wise, voice was mad shaky through the whole thing. Some of it was authentic. Some of it was performative, and it makes me cringe now. But I can still rest assured, that it was genuine. I practiced this poem just enough. I didn't want to practice it too much. I wanted to practice it enough that I memorized it, but had not fully processed the words that I wrote, so that when it was time to perform it, I would still be very much in the freshness of that emotion. Because I think sometimes if you perform something too much, as I've learned on tour, like it's really hard to give a genuine performance, 25 shows into a tour. Maybe on the 10th, there's like a sweet spot where like you've memorized a poem really well, but it's still very fresh to you. And so it's still very emotional. And so it's not hard to conjure up this emotion. It's not hard to cry because those tears are probably real still. It feels a little fake and forced later on in the tour. But, here, I don't know if the camera actually picks up on it, but I do cry in this video. And those tears were really genuine because, again, this was a fresh experience for me.
But never enough answers, and my faith is small enough to fit in the cracks of my palms. God, every night I lay my head down to sleep. The city of my mind is attacked by a legion of questions, threatening the living rooms of my sanity and holding them hostage. Can you help me? Last year, my grandmother laid in a hospital bed like a bus stop, waiting for God to come pick her up. I had never seen such pain and such confidence living in the same eyes when she told me, I don't know what I'm gonna do, but I know who I belong to, and I was so happy for her.
Yeah, that was a moment. I remember that. My grandmother passed away. And, side note, this poem, I'm listening to it now, I remember this was sort of modeled after another poem by one of my favorite artists at the time, and just a really cool human that I'm friends with still, is Levi the Poet. He wrote a poem called Resentment. And, man, the emotion he conveyed in that video, it was so unorthodox to me. This dude used to do these like screams. He would scream in the middle of a poem. And it was an acquired taste. For some people, it was, too much. But for me, it was like, it just felt, it felt so free to, to just be able to yell like that in a poem. It was kind of like, it was dope. He doesn't do it as much these days, that style of poetry. But, I do remember this. My grandmother, a year before that, she was in not necessarily a hospital. It was actually a nursing home, and she was in her last days there. It's just like she had been fighting, and body was just deteriorating. And I just remember her laying in the bed, just looking up at the ceiling, and she said, "Baby, I don't know what I'm gonna do, but I know who I belong to, the Son of the living God." She said, Jesus, the Son of the living God. So she said it just like that. Jesus, the Son of the living God. I didn't put that part in the poem, but she said that was the full line. And wow, that was a surreal moment for me.
And something inside of me wished that somehow before she passed away, she could pass down her confidence in God to me like an old family picture. I remember sitting in the back row of a cold sanctuary, crying.
I'm cringing at the
Because
articulation.
I desperately wanted what the preacher was saying to be true, but my doubts were preaching a sermon of their own, and the streams of my tears turned into
Oceans of frustration.
I
Yeah, I remember that. I was back in my church home in Texas, and I just remember listening to the preacher, and I desperately wanted to believe. I just wanted the faith to be there so bad. And it was like wanting something that you know you just can't have, like, and just fighting for it. It's like, you know, someone that you really love that just was so distant from you, and you just wish, like, yo, what do you want me to be? I'll be it for you. I just want to be with you. I'll be whatever you want me to be as long as that being is with you. And I felt that, man. I was crying literally in the last row. I was in the very back row of the sanctuary. The wall was literally right behind me, like, and just crying, sadness, and just frustrated, man.
remember sitting in a college classroom, and the only thing being tested is my faith in God. The only thing passing is my hope. Me. In a backpack full of fear. Nowhere to go. No one to help me unpack. I sleep. I sleep, but I never rest.
These lines around my eyes are not wrinkles, they're maps. They show you the winding road that leads to my pain. I'm tired. Yeah, college, you know, that's when the doubts really started weighing in on me. And I just, at the time, you know, I felt like there wasn't a lot of conversation for young Christians, you know, on how to be intellectually fit to have conversations around faith. It really was just like, yo, you just got to believe, just believe in the power of God, just believe the Bible. There was no real, you really went to school with no real, like, ammunition, dog, and it was firing. And you was just like, I don't know what to do. And, you know, apologetics online, social media now is way more popular in offering those weapons, you know, for Christians. So, you know, that's more common now. But then at the time, nah.
I'm tired. And I'm longing for the day that I can place my fingers in his nail-pierced hands, because honestly, I've considered quitting, but where will I go? Back?
No. You will go forward, but in a different direction. You may not know where you're going, but that doesn't mean you have to stay, Joe. I know you felt like that was a great question to ask in that moment. But I understand the fear behind it. I understand the fear behind it. It's the unknown. And faith to you in Jesus and the Bible and religion was very much also a great unknown, but at least it offered some familiarity, some sense of nostalgia, some sense of comfort. And to move forward with your curiosity, you were afraid of what you may find, and what you may find may not be all that comforting and, quite frankly, familiar But what you will find is honesty and yourself. You'll find you.
There's no home for the living in the land of the dead, so I keep pressing forward. Today I have faith, but I can't make any promises about tomorrow.
I'm surprised I held on this long.
God, just make me feel like I'm not crazy. God, let me know that I'm not just making friends with these walls when I pray. I'm not questioning you. I just got questions. Don't leave me here.
That was real emotion.
Don't leave me.
It's all right, bro. It's all right. I'm going to be all right.
My child. My child. When it seems like you have all the right questions, but never enough answers, and your faith is small enough to fit in the cracks of your palms, I told you. Faith the size of mustard seeds can rearrange whole landscapes and turn mountains into open highways. Faith comes by my word, so maybe you've cuffed your ears, my child. Don't be childish. But consider the child whose faith has not quite learned the definition of impossible. Have your questions. I'm not telling you to have a blind faith. I'm telling you to consider the blind men who had faith and believed my words before they were even able to see me. Consider the birds that eat from my hand and do not fall from the sky without my consent. So how much more will I love the ones that I died for? Before you doubt me, doubt your doubts.
Man, that was obviously that's a climax of the poem, Doubt Your Doubts, so much that people thought the title of the poem was Doubt Your Doubts. And it was actually inspired by a sermon that I heard. I forget the guy's name now. It was actually through Redeemer Presbyterian Church, Tim Keller's church in Manhattan, and it was one of the associate pastors, and I think it was like a Sunday night kind of workshop thing or something. It wasn't like a full-on sermon per se. And I remember him talking about doubt your doubts in a very practical way, and I thought that phrase was so powerful. So slightly plagiaristic, but more so, the idea behind doubt your doubts, which I actually still get with. I mentioned before that, much of my critical thinking skills that I have now, I learned through Christian apologetics. It did help me think critically about things and to ask questions and be aware of my epistemologically aware. Epistemologically self-aware is a phrase that we would say in apologetics class, and just being aware of where you arrive at knowledge, where you come from to arrive where you are. I don't think enough people question what they know and question how they know what they know, which can be a pretty trippy experience. And I learned that through there. So, to some degree, I doubted my doubts. I questioned, question your questions, essentially, like the objections that people had towards Christianity. Have some objections to them. I question the questioner, doubt the doubts that you may have. Like, well, why am I doubting this? Is there a presumption behind this that I'm not analyzing? And I'm still on that today. I still approach societal norms, cultural norms, with that type of thinking of like, well, is that true? Why is it true? Why do you believe that to be true? Ooh, so where are you gaining that knowledge from? What is, as Pilate asked, what is truth? And how do you define it? How do you arrive at truth? And so, I still, to some degree, I stick with that, but I think that doubt your doubts is also a way, it's a double-edged sword where it can be very gaslighty. You can kind of gaslight yourself in thinking that, just because you question the questions, like, don't stop there. Don't question the question in order to stay comfortable. Question the question in order to arrive at truth. Doubt the doubt in order to arrive at truth. And I think for the Christian worldview, it's like, well, the truth is always going to be Jesus, no matter what. It's always going to be the Bible is this. And not just the Bible, or not just Jesus, but a particular type of Jesus, a particular type of Bible, whichever, depending on where you find yourself in the world and in time. It can be kind of trippy to, keep trying to trick yourself back into something that you just, is not holding water, but you keep plugging up the holes and putting more water in it, and eventually it lets out.
Doubt your doubts, and you will see they are just as empty as the tomb that I walked from. Truth is,
I think that that's an important point. That's a very subtle point to make right here. I hate to keep stopping it again, but it said, and you will see that they're as empty as a tomb that I walked from, which I think is I don't even know if I realized I was doing it at this time. Well, maybe I did. I had awareness of it at this point in my life, where humans are very much storytelling beings, man. I think that's what's so captivating about the story of Jesus and about any religious story that explains very practical things in a very storytelling way, in a very narrative kind of way. And to find ourselves, where do we find ourselves in the grand story of the universe, of the cosmos, of life, of reality? And I think that it can be scary to think of a world where we are not very much like the center of the narrative, or that we're not the apple of the eye of God, that we're very much like, there's this sort of, I won't say pointless, but arcless narrative or endless narrative of the universe where we just kind of pop into existence and we pop away. And we're like, well, where am I at in the story? And that's a very, very scary and unfamiliar place to be. It's very scary. But I say that as like, I think what some of the best preachers and just teachers and speakers in general do is find a way to take very practical things and place them inside of a story. And that resonates with people's emotions. So you can say a lot of truthful things and you'll get through to some people. But if you say a lot of truthful things couched in a story, man. So I'm saying something very, doubt your doubts. It's very like, this is a very philosophical, very practical, concrete thing to do, but I'm couching it in the narrative of Jesus. It's as empty as the tomb that I walked from. And that really hits the soul when you take practical things. And so, that's the difficult thing that I'm, still navigating through right now is like, well, what's the narrative? What's the story? Because that's what motivates people. That's what keeps people going. That's what keeps people in the race, because they want to stay in the story. And sometimes we have to create our own stories to keep going, which is kind of scary. But yeah, everyone needs a story. I don't care what you believe in. Agnostic, Hindu, Buddhist, atheist, whatever, to keep yourself sane, you have to come up with a narrative to put yourself in. We're storytelling beings.
Truth is, you know I'm here. You know my truth, and you're scared. Scared of what that means. Scared of what that should cost you. That one day they will all laugh at you, laugh you right out of their classrooms and scorn you out of their courtrooms, but...
Yeah. Truth is, you're scared. I think I'm scared in both ways. I think this created a, not a false narrative, but a limited perspective of saying I was scared. The reason why I'm having doubts is because I'm scared of like what that would really cost to be a Christian, which I think is a good thing to consider for Christians in general, or for whatever you say you believe in. Consider the cost, as Jesus says. Consider the cost. Foxes have holes, birds have nests. Are you sure you want to? Do you understand what you're signing up for? But the Son of Man has no place to rest his head. Are you sure you know what you're signing up for? And so when you really consider the weight of that demand, that someone would give everything in exchange for your life, that is a huge demand. Are you sure you know what you're signing up for your entire life? That's a scary prospect. But I was also scared of the other prospect as well, is that Jesus gave up everything in order that I may have life. And it could be scary that on the other side is that you give up your life for nothingness, for meaninglessness, and trying to give up myself for no story. And that's things that I wrestle with intellectually and emotionally on a regular basis. So,
our love serves as an eviction notice to anxiety. When they cast stones, my love casts out fear. I am the author and finisher of your faith. I've never started a work that I will not finish. I am the one. I am the one who will give you courage to stare death in the face and say, how dare you try to scare me? I know who I belong to. And when it feels like you are drowning, in a sea of your questions,
couldn't fake these tears. Couldn't fake these tears.
I'm there. Like when I drowned in the Red Sea of my blood for you, and these hands that took hold
will hold you. And when I told you
that I would love you forever, I meant it. Don't you see these rings in my hands? See, we are married.
That was a bar.
For better or for worse. Through sickness and in health, through faith and through questions, till death brings us closer, you are mine.
Damn, that was a bar too.
You are mine. And I am yours. I promise.
Wow. April 26, 2014, you can kind of see the date blurred off in the background for the canvas. That was actually the first side note about this event. This was actually the first time I ended up booking. There was a Christian rapper, I won't say his name, who I tried to book for this event, and the customer service was terrible. They were so rude. It just did things. So I was trying to look for a music headliner. The whole show was poetry and supposed to do a music headliner. And it was just tough. And so I went another route. I was like, man, there's this other guy who's really dope. He was going by this name called, he was going by Spazzy Rocket at the time. And he was dropping these mixtapes on Bandcamp, and I thought this dude was just fire. He lived in San Antonio, about a couple hours away. I hit him up like, yo, how much would you do it for? I'm not gonna tell you the price. It was stupid cheap. He drove out, killed it. Not a lot of people knew who he was at the time. But when they walked away, they were like, y'all don't know who that dude was, but he is fire. That was the first time that he ever performed as a headliner for a ticketed event. And me and that guy are still friends to this day. He goes by his more government name these days, Xavier Omar. One of his most famous songs is, "You're so beautiful, girl, a blind man can love you. Ooh, ooh." So yeah, he performed at this particular Canvas event. So fun fact. But anyways, man, that was really cool going down that journey, reminiscing with my old self and the struggles that I go through, that I was going through at the time, and looking at him with compassion and knowing that he was. I sensed the genuineness in him. Like I said, some of it was a bit performative. Absolutely, you got to perform, right? But it was a real place, and I was really genuine with those doubts and questions, and really genuine with wanting to have faith. And as you can see, as that poem climaxes, me trying to hold on to the promises of God, and I did for a while. Even after that poem, I felt very. I still felt a bit empty, but resolved that I was going to see this thing through. I was like, I guess this is the path that I've chosen. I'm going to see this thing through. But I feel very alone. I feel very alone. So sometimes I regret that it took me this long to get here. When I saw the signs, I had moments. I went on to perform and teach for, longer than that, and gained so much more of a following since then, and really dug my heels in even more so. And but it is what it is. It's a journey that I was on, and I'm committed to the same journey that this guy was on. At least is the journey of trying to be authentic. I had a few screws loose here and there, and trying to stick with what was familiar out of my own comfort zone. But there was authenticity and genuineness there of wanting to be honest with myself and with those around me. And I'm still committed to that journey, bro. I know you probably didn't think that it would come to this. I know you're probably afraid of this day. I'm surprised I've held on this long, you said. I know you feared this day would come. But it is just as bad as you thought, but also not nearly as bad as you thought. There's still joy and hope and peace and curiosity and desire to live on this side. Thanks for watching, y'all.